As the clock can arrive, we'll officially call the meeting to order. Is the meeting been properly posted and roll the tape?
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 2, our approval of the minutes. 2.1, our approval of the minutes from the July 1st, 2024 meeting. If there's no additions or corrections, I entertain a motion to approve that minutes. So moved. There's a motion.
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item number 3, our communications. Reminder that the September meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, September 3rd, due to the Labor Day holiday. There's no other communications, then we'll move on to item number 4, which is public hearing, review, possible recommendation regarding Advanced Power Plant Solutions LLC. And 4.1 is a public hearing on a request to consider a conditional use permit to allow for a group development containing airport/helicopters or heliports, indoor sales or service, indoor maintenance service, and in-vehicle sales or service land uses in the airplane hangar buildings at 2375 East Geneva Street in the Manufacturing Light ML zoning district. Applicant again, Advanced Power Plant Solutions LLC. And so with that, I will go ahead and open the public hearing. Start with our staff.
If I sit here, does this, I don't know if can everyone hear me? Is it picking up? Okay. All right. So before us today is a conditional use permit for the Lake Lawn Airport. This is in the Manufacturing Light zoning district. They're not proposing any new construction or much development at all, but rather proposing to bring new businesses into the airport to increase economic activity and just have more going on at the airport. The applicants can tell you a bit more about their maybe long-term plans that we're not considering this evening. At this point, they're basically looking at putting different businesses in each of the 2 existing hangar buildings on the property. Because we have multiple principal uses that are separate from the airport itself in terms of its operations, we regulate this as a group development. And the idea is to make sure we have enough parking for all the different uses and we're meeting all the requirements for those individual uses, just to make sure we're not overcrowding the site. It is a little bit unusual, it's an airport, it's the only airport we have in town, but we do have requirements for airports in our zoning code. And so we use those to guide the review of this proposal. So just a brief word on what they're proposing. Hangar 1 would be a retail showroom where they would do retail sales of engine parts and engines. We'd consider that an indoor sales or service land use in the zoning code. Hangar 2 would be used for engine repair and maintenance. Zoning code would consider that an indoor maintenance service land use. Main issue or topics to be aware of as part of this proposal are parking. Based on square footage, they would need 36 parking spaces on the site. Considering that the airport's a little bit different than a typical use or a multi-tenant building with different businesses coming in, we think it's important that they have ability to build out those 36 parking spaces, but it's likely that they won't need those right away, especially as this gets up and running. And so the applicant is proposing to construct 10 new parking spaces on the site to serve the new businesses. That's in addition to the 12 existing parking spaces already on the property. And then they've mapped out where they could add an additional 14 to be in full compliance with the code should those spaces be needed, and or should they bring forward plans for further expansion as they have indicated they are interested in. We would definitely need to see those parking spaces built out to accommodate those additional uses should they come forward. So just to clarify, we are not reviewing or approving any additional expansion beyond the 2 businesses that I just described. We do have a number of conditions of approval located in the last 2 pages of the staff report. Many of those are carried forward from the previous conditional use permit that they had approved in 2019. We wanted to keep those conditions in there so that if there is further development on the site, some of those conditions are carried forward and would apply to that future development. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions at this time, first now? Otherwise, I would ask if they
I
have.
have a question. They talked about the gate in here. And they're gonna gate the entrance, is that my?
That's correct. They've spoken with the fire department on having access to that gate, having the fire department have access to that gate.
I assume that's the black gate that's there now.
I believe so.
It's not a gate off of.
Probably.
Off of it.
I don't believe so.
I would just maybe ask the applicant at this time to address or add anything more that hasn't been talked about or some of the future plans.
Sure. Dave Secure is the Chief Operating Officer at Lake Lawn and the neighboring parcels. So the airport parcel, as you know, has been there for 50, 60 years as a runway. And I know that's something that's very important for, even though it's a private runway, private airport, for the city to have that within the city limits. That's something that's been mentioned multiple times over the years. If we look back at like the last 20 years or so, there hasn't been a big investment on the part of the Lake Lawn ownership, whoever it was at that point, of investing more into the runway. There's been times we've resurfaced it, but over those years, we've lost the runway lights, we've lost fueling services. And in fact, there was some big events in the past that you may be familiar with. If you've been around for a while, the warbirds fly in, et cetera. They used to bring out a lot of people. So just in the last couple of years, we had those approvals to add on the hangars. We didn't have a real use for them other than future aircraft storage and rental space. And the primary building that we'll call like this, the airport main office, that in the past had been used over the last 20 years by the Historical Society or the Walworth County Visitor Bureau, really isn't necessarily the right use for Lake Lawn. I mean, advantage to Lake Lawn. So in meeting the couple that's behind me, I'll introduce them in just a moment, but they have quite the experience in running the type of airplane or pilot services, and to be like a true manager for the airport. So I met with them about 6 months ago and tried to come up with a plan. Right now, they are using that main airport office as just kind of like a pseudo office and a manager for the airport. We've been having more and more planes come in because of that. Interesting to note, the Grand Geneva is suspending their operations at their runway. That may be one that's closing in the near future for development at the Grand Geneva. So it is a big advantage for the resort to have more services offered for planes coming in. And so what they're presenting is a true use of the hangars that we're asking for on the conditional use to be able to do some plane maintenance and some sales. And what that also brings is a number of training classes. We were just talking about at the end of September or early October, they may have a group in of a couple of dozen individuals that would be occupying guest rooms for a couple of weeks and doing training classes for a variety of different things at the resort conference center. And so I look at it as a win-win. It's starting to expand the airport, eventually could lead to building on some additional hangars that we'll come back for in the future. But in addition to that, some fueling services, and bring some of those things back that will get us some greater traffic, some more recognition, and obviously add some business to the resort. So I'd like to introduce Jeremy and Daniela Knoll, and they can go over their experience with you.
Thank you, Dave. Jeremy and Daniela Knoll, 1201 Lance Drive in Twin Lakes, Wisconsin. Also with the business at 2375 East Geneva Street here in Delavan. They've pretty much covered how this whole concept came about in the first place. We both happen to be pilots as well and have owned aviation businesses for the last 13 years or so. So we kind of know what people talk about, what they say about nearby airports, and the Lake Lawn Airport has unfortunately sort of fallen off a little bit the face of the earth for many, just based on the fact that there are really no services to be offered. When we had an opportunity to bring a business into Delavan, Lake Lawn Airport was the perfect choice for us, not only because it's a location within the Midwest and that's basically the territory for the business, but also because of the potential that we saw with the resort being across the street, with all the shopping centers down the road. It really gives pilots that fly in a lot of options of what they can do, potentially while their aircraft is being serviced or just as a recreational thing. Pilots love to just fly somewhere for lunch or for breakfast or for dinner. And having the resort, golf, of course, having the resort across the street offers them quite a lot of options there. So that was the main reason why we really saw Lake Lawn Airport being a great fit for us. So the initial step is to bring in a business called Advanced Power Plant Solutions, where we sell aircraft engines, parts, and also the service associated with that as far as repair services and things like that. The previous company that we purchased this from did not really have an airport location. So customers are extremely excited about the fact that they could fly in to us, pick up parts, and out the door they go. And to the point of, as far as what we understand that all the items that we have to comply with, especially the parking spaces and things like that, we really don't foresee this particular business having like a lot of drive-in traffic like another business would at a strip mall or things like that. I mean, it's not a lot of quantity of people that come in for that. They come in, they pick up, they go. When we're talking about repair services, that's where we would not necessarily want them hanging out. They drop off whatever needs to be fixed, and if it's an airplane, then they can go across the street or down the road to enjoy the city itself. So we don't foresee it being something that has a lot of drive-in traffic. We want to obviously encourage a lot of fly-in traffic as well to bring that back. So yeah, that is basically what was explained earlier with the first two hangar buildings, with the expansion of further buildings to bring in some more management for the airport, to bring in that fuel, to bring in some of those events that pilots like, fly-ins, pancake breakfast, whatever, that we can coordinate with the lodge on to bring a little life back to the airport and hopefully some improvements for it. But if there's any specific questions that you have about our intentions, happy to answer.
What?
Question probably for Lake Lawn as opposed to Protectable. I'd like to say, I'm glad to see some life, potential life coming back to the airport. To your knowledge, is the airport a separate entity or is it part of Lake Lawn?
It is a separate LLC that is ultimately owned by the LLC that owns Lake Lawn. So the LLC is Delavan Lake Lawn Airfield LLC.
Do you have an idea of how long it has been an LLC?
Well, it's been that way since 2011. And before that, it was a different LLC under a different ownership. So it's been an LLC for as long as I can remember for that separate parcel.
These questions are actually going somewhere. To your knowledge, has either Lake Lawn or the airport entity ever received any federal funds?
No, we have not, to my knowledge. Mostly because it's been a private airport, and that is very difficult to get federal funds or state funds on that, being that's privately owned.
The reason I was asking, if it has, and I don't know what the timing might be on when it received those funds, but if it has, then the FAA requires a written statement for use for these hangars for non-aeronautical purposes. Something you might want to check into.
Yes.
You folks may be aware of that.
Yeah,
regulation.
just to clarify though, these two hangars, what we're asking for is still for aeronautical purposes.
You need to read the FAA reg. They're kind of specific about what is and what isn't. And hangar 2 under this description, probably yes. Hangar 1 probably is in a gray area.
All I can kind of reiterate to what Dave said was that it is most likely very rare, if not impossible, to get funding for a private airport from the government. So it's, I can't imagine that ever
Yeah,
has
I
happened
don't know that
because,
is ever happened.
as much as we currently have another business at another private airport and know that management company quite well, and as much as they've tried, they keep saying it's a private airport, you can't get any.
Yeah, it's impossible to get funded.
So.
If you have a great contact for me, please pass it on.
Same, but, that,
Going back to the first part with the hangar 1 is it's aircraft engines and all aircraft parts. So where we're at now, we're actually at another airport at 10 Charlie Galt Airport, and we're there as well. And we sell aircraft parts and do sales there too. And according to the FAA there, is anything that's related to aircraft is considered, yes, you're a go.
They are specific about warehousing and inventory as being not allowed. Like, again, all of this is dependent upon whether or not there's any federal funding.
Thank you.
Right.
right,
Thank you.
I put that out there, something you might want to be aware of. I'm sure you don't want to get tangled up with those guys.
No, like I said, we're at another private airport now, so we deal with all that stuff as of now. So moving forward, this should be fairly simple.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah.
So I do agree that normal parking may not be a problem, but you have sufficient aircraft parking.
Yes, the ramp has lots of parking up there.
the current situation that the airport has is plenty, it's actually quite a lot.
This last weekend, we have seen a dozen planes there. And it's a lot because of their connections that they have already. So kudos to them to trying to bring some life back to that airport.
Like we were at Oshkosh Air Show, so we were mentioning, where everybody's like, where are you at? Where are you at? We're like, Lake Lawn. How's the runway there?
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of people are like, come in, check it out. So, we had a guy fly in on Saturday and then he came back today. So it's all good, so.
I did want to mention that, in just working with the city staff, it was fantastic and just going through and helping to answer our questions and the communication with them. Looking at the conditions and based on the previous conditional use permits, I just want to make sure that this doesn't jeopardize, or that it's still important that we have the availability to continue to use this for resort needs. And that would be like events that we have across the way, like, we have the car show that we just had, or I talked about the fly-in, or we're talking about other things. That's always been part of the use, was to continue to do those expanded resort services there as well. And during that time, we play it very safe based on what the event is. We file a particular NOTAM for a length of time, letting everyone know that the runway is closed. We go out there, we put big X's on the runway, and we do all the required notifications to make sure that that's maintained in a safe way.
I have a question about fueling services. Since you don't have any fueling services out there, is that a concern with airport repair? I mean, with airplane repair?
It is, that's something that we're gonna bring up in the future is, with making the office that we have right now, which is the old, it's the FBO office. But that'll become a true FBO, once we get into our buildings and get our offices set there. And then, the plan is to, you know, revamp the runways, revamp the taxiway, runway lighting, bring in fuel services, stuff like that.
Field services is one of the most important ones, to answer your question, because if we are working on aircraft, or if we do need the fuel for the aircraft, you know, that is needed, and it certainly will bring more people in, knowing that they can get fuel while they're here. So it is a very important part.
So that will come in time, and we'll go through the proper permitting for that, but it could very well just be a fuel truck that's parked there, that's rented. There's lots of different options we have.
So that could happen relatively quickly if needed.
During this build out phase, and based on what the needs are and what arrangements we can make. But like I said, we'll go through proper permitting, et cetera, for all those.
Any other questions of the applicant?
Thank you.
Otherwise, are there any other citizens who wish to speak either in favor or against this issue at this time? Hearing none, then I will close the public hearing and move on to item number 4.2, which is review and possible recommendation for common council on a request to consider a conditional use permit to allow for a group development containing airport, heliports, indoor sales or service, indoor maintenance service, and in-vehicle sales or service land uses in the airplane hangar buildings at 2375 East Geneva Street in the manufacturing light and Mountain zoning district. Again, applicant Advanced Power Plant Solutions LLC. Is there a motion?
Is correct. I'd like to make a motion to recommend common council approval of the conditional use request for a group development containing airport, heliport, indoor sales or service, indoor maintenance service, and in-vehicle sales of service land use at 2375 East Geneva Street in the manufacturing light ML zoning district, subject to findings and conditions of approval as listed in the agenda report.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to item number 5, business 5.1 is consider exterior signage colors in downtown historical overlay district for 237 East Waller Avenue within the downtown design overlay zoning district. Motion.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is at 237 East Walworth, for signage in the downtown historical district. And the plan commission operates as our historical downtown development review team. And we do have our next 2 items. Both these signs are from the same sign company with Bauer. We have the applicant to represent them for both of these addresses. If you have any questions, sign maker can answer them for you.
Are there any questions? Yes, Ken.
So on this, sign and, I just want to ask a question about, the illumination, right?
Yes.
And I guess I want to ask about the color, it says backs to be white acrylic lettered, right?
Correct.
So is that the box that the light face is going into?
It's halo lit, so the back is open, so the inside of the.
And so
halo is
in this
open.
case, the halo, the lit, so the white LED, that's my second question.
Yes,
Well, how does it exist? Where is it?
inside the can, the letter can, each letter will have.
Okay, and those, they're independent letters, right? Okay, so, thank you. And so, you say that this sign is permitted because it's under 13.3.829G sign illumination 2. It says it's internally illuminated sign, backlit sign, flashing light, and illuminated awnings with or without messages are not permitted. Signs containing internally lit individual letters or backlit individual letters are permitted. So since these are individual letters and not a sign face, you would contend that's approved. That's fine. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Any other questions? Hearing the motion. You
Brian,
want to take it separately? Yeah. Yes.
on 5.1, I would move to approve the proposed signage for 237 East Walworth Avenue as submitted.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion passes. Item number 5.2 is consider exterior signage colors in the downtown historical overlay district for 225 East Walworth Avenue within the downtown design overlay zoning district. Kevin?
So once again, I want to clarify that it identifies two illumination types. On the red, it's is it backlit or is it once again halo lit?
These are internal.
Okay,
So it's on the
so
raceway,
the
right?
individual LIQUORS are individual
Letters
letters.
with individual lighting inside.
Lighting, okay, so that's one. The, what I'm gonna call the crown, how would you describe that?
Same thing, internally lit cabinet,
Okay,
the
so,
white LEDs.
so this is my concern, right? So the first part of it says internally illuminated lights and backlit lights are not permitted. And that's not individual lettered. There's an exception in the code for individual lettered cans. They're permitted to be backlit, but not sign face.
So this cabinet isn't backlit, it is a halo. It's a complete enclosed cabinet, but it is internally lit.
Right, so, excuse me, right, so, got nothing to draw with, but, so the can for this light is a semicircle, roughly.
Correct.
Right, and it has an acrylic face on it.
Correct.
And the acrylic face, is the tangerine color with, white printing. That box got LED lights inside of it.
Yes.
Okay, so by my reading, that sign is not permitted. There's an exception for internally lit individual letters, but not for that sign.
Okay.
And the reason I'm sensitive to it isn't that it makes an ounce of difference aesthetically, whether it's individual sign, individual letter that's backlit, or whether it's a sign face that's backlit, in terms of the general purpose of the downtown design district, which is to have things look like sometime between 1890 and 1920, which none of this does, but we've turned down before similar signs with internal lighting.
Okay.
And so I think it's a problem to approve this one after we've disapproved others for this on this provision.
If it was not illuminated, just the letters were illuminated, it would be fine.
So in other circumstances, this specific section says illumination of exterior signage shall be limited to shielded fixtures. The lighting element of such fixtures shall not be visible from public rights of way or adjoining property. So other folks who have building face signs like this have put lights shining up at them from an awning, from inside an awning or something like that. So, that's an alternate way to light this light. The other way, and your client's not gonna like it, is if it was, if they were individual lights on an orange field, I mean, individual letters
Yeah, like
lit
channel
on
lights.
an orange field, which
Yeah.
would
Increase the value.
quintuple his price, his cost, that would be permitted, so. So that's my question, my concern, and, we're the downtown design group, so I think, I mean, we, for all intents and purposes, could violate the law ourselves, but I think it would be better to clarify this at some point as opposed to, create an exception here. That's my concern.
If we redesigned it to be a non-illuminated cabinet on top,
Then it's
then
fine,
it's fine. Okay, right.
by my reading, I mean,
Or you could do the externally illuminated. as
or
you-
externally illuminated, but I mean, so you
I don't
can
know how
shine
that
lights
would
from the back of the,
Right.
But,
from the
yeah.
back of the U at it, but I don't think it's gonna work.
It's kind of.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts, comments? Staff want to weigh in a little more?
Yeah, well, I understand where Kevin's coming from, and I agree with Kevin with what he's saying, because there's been some signs, if you look around, that have probably been approved that maybe shouldn't have been approved. Whether that was in my time or before my time, I'm not sure, but, so I'm trying to bring these things to you so that we're consistent, because we're trying to keep that historical downtown, to preserve it, so. I do know they talk about a corporate theme type thing, because I believe that.
But this is, so that exception is written specifically for places like BP.
Right, which is
I
one
mean,
that
it's
we
not
approved, right,
written for La Costera or J, I know, and, but.
right, I'm just saying that there are some exceptions out there, but I agree with Kevin with that.
So,
Maybe I would just ask Mr. Bauer, is it Mr. Bauer?
No, 20-year store.
Oh, is this, that's the company?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Do you want a little more time maybe to talk with the business and come up with something else? Maybe we have this on the agenda for next month?
Yeah, absolutely.
If that's fair?
Yeah.
Or
if that's
if
your
it's not gonna
recommendation.
be illuminated, then.
Or, yeah.
if it's
Yeah,
not,
being
if it's not
illuminated, they'll need to
illuminated,
come to
then,
the.
yeah, I mean, if you would prefer a motion that said, approve it without illumination of the La Costera 4J section, we could act on that now, and then if in your discussions, you decided you wanted to take an alternate approach, then we could discuss it again.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Fair.
Want to care to make a motion like that?
I move to approve the proposed signage for 225 East Walworth Avenue without the backlit La Costera 4J tangerine like illuminated.
There's a motion.
Is that okay, Andy?
There's a motion, and a second. Everyone clear on the motion? With that, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating that.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to item number 5.3 is considered the planned infill development amendment to the official zoning map for a step 3 general development plan GDP at 207 through 433 South Wright Street, tax parcel XA 4527-2, located in the Business Regional BR zoning district with a wellhead protection overlay to allow for future development of commercial out parcels and expanded indoor storage land use. Applicant Star Delavan LLC.
Right.
I think we've talked about this. Yes.
I'd just like to, for the benefit of all commission members, identify that, this has been asked to come back to the, commission this month. because at our last meeting, there was no motion moved forward and there's no action. So as part of the, as I understand it, rules related to GDP activity, no action on the part of the commission means after 60 days, the GDP moves to the council without any recommendation. And so if the commission wants to have to express a perspective about this item, that's why it's on the agenda.
Thank you, Kevin, for clarifying that. I would ask staff, Dale, whoever wants to start us off with, okay, if there's anything different to.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to put this back on the agenda tonight. We do seek approval of the application as submitted, but in the month since the last hearing, since we had the hearing, I tried to take to heart some of the comments we heard last time, the concerns that were expressed about the many moving pieces involved in this application, and tried to consider changes. I talked with my client about this, and we have a couple of ideas to reduce the overall size and impact of this project, make it perhaps easier to approve, we're hoping. And a couple of different choices are available. And I spoke with them as recently as just a couple hours ago to confirm that this is okay to offer. The project is different than what you saw a year and a half ago because staff has asked for, and we've agreed to, a number of features to this project so that if it's approved, we think the property as a whole will be more attractive, will be better maintained, it'll look nicer, it'll be modernized. But included in that are the two principal areas, are the two proposed outlot use areas. They're not really outlots yet. They're just use areas for each side of the parts store, the auto parts store. Name escapes me at the moment. And with the understanding that those would have to come back to the city for land division at the future for whatever use permits are needed, the tenant would have to come in. But getting those use areas kind of conceptually approved allows marketing to take place. One option is to withdraw those so that my client would attempt to market the property without those use areas approved, try to go to prospective tenants and explain that they would have to come in to get that use area approved, get the certified survey map approved, and then whatever use permit. So it'd add another layer to the marketing process with prospective tenants, but they're willing to do that. That's one option. And again, we're just trying to reduce the overall size of what we're asking for here today. There's another option. You all have this map, the colored map, that explains what we're doing here. Another option is simply to reduce the amount of self-storage. What I heard at the meeting was a strong desire to see retail preserved in the storefronts as much as possible, if that's fair to summarize it that way. I think that was the goal, was to not have self-storage maybe in some of those storefronts. So one other option my client has authorized me to offer as an alternative is to not quite half, but close to half the amount of additional space. The red area along the front there, those two storefronts, they're actually units 307 and 317, about 9,800 square feet of retail would be withdrawn from the application. Withdrawn. The only additional square footage for self-storage would be the quarter-acre size area behind at the rear of the former Slumberland store, which is, I'm told by my client, is very difficult to rent as is. It's a big space, and they would have difficulty trying to rent a quarter acre that didn't have direct store frontage. So what they've offered is to withdraw 307 and 317. I think I have those numbers correct. But they would like to hang on to the little office they have there, which is actually consistent with your zoning for this use area in the zoning district. That's an alternative. If you agree and recommend it forward on that basis, we can confirm in writing for the record that we're withdrawing that part of the application and we'll go to the city council for consideration. All the other conditions that we agreed to, all the other additional features that staff has asked for and included in the memo from the planner are still agreed to. They're still part of this project. goal is to build something nice, to have it look nice, to be built up in a nice way. And we're trying to respect the Plan Commission's stated desire to maybe have less self-storage out there. And I'm available if you have any questions. I haven't discussed this with staff at all, but she's here, and if you have any questions too.
Just to clarify, this is the area that would change.
Yeah, and on my map, it shows that there's 317 and 307. However, the little 900 square foot office space would stay, but that is not self-storage. That's consistent with your zoning and retail uses anyway. That's about a 45% reduction in the additional square footage that we were asking for originally and you heard about in the past. Yes, sir.
Yes, Kevin.
I have two clarifications. From the original GDP, this map also shows, behind the old, pick and save, much smaller storage area than had been previously approved. So the original approval called for a larger addition to the back of that building. And so, to clarify, do we also, would it also be fair if we're looking from that part to here, to your proposal, that they are also authorizing removal of that previously approved section?
Well, this map shows in the green area to the left, 3 phases of development that were approved 4 years ago with the original GDP. And those are still being requested as possible for the future.
Okay.
It would be the dollar store and then a very small area at the back of the building.
And my point is, on the back of that building, if you go back to the map from 3 years ago, the addition was significantly larger.
I don't believe that's the case.
It was about twice
It
the
is
size.
very much.
Okay. Well, this is what my client has asked for. So if that is the case, this application controls, this would supersede any earlier GDP approvals. This is what we're looking for.
Okay.
But until you said it, I was not aware that it was different in that way. It certainly wasn't told to me that way.
The other element that I think that I want to be clear on is the original approval. I shouldn't call it original approval, because the original approval in this area was to build a grocery store. But the original approval related to the storage allowed the construction of a building in what is on this map, lot 3. And so that building could be constructed at this point based upon that GDP. And so your option 1, which was to withdraw those outlots, would it also withdraw that building?
Well, if we give up self-storage in 307 and 317, we would ask to retain the potential for new buildings to go up at.
Okay, so they're
outlet 2
alternates,
and
not,
3.
yeah.
They're definitely alternates.
Okay.
We're trying to offer choices.
Okay.
And again, I wasn't aware that, I think when the original approval took place, I wasn't here, I was not in the room, but trying to parse together from the minutes I read was that the dollar store, if and when it might move out to a location out here, and that was projected to be out here, but I don't think the actual use area was defined in 2020.
The building was approved
So, okay.
as part of that. Right, Jackie?
Correct, it was a later phase.
When I read the GDP, and also, so I was under the assumption that Q-Smart was gonna fill that building, facing Rice Street, and you're kind of changing it to say, well, we want the option to put those spikes in, but you're gonna let the new tenant come to us.
Well, whether it be a tenant, whether it be dollar store, whether it be a buyer of the outlets, where they come in and build themselves, there's a number of possibilities that are potentially available, yes.
But they originally said that Q-Smart would put up a building out there.
That was one possibility, it's still a possibility.
No, that's what, well, but you changed it a little bit, because we're saying now that potential buyer or potential tenant would come forth and put it up that.
Well, because we don't know if Chick-fil-A
Now,
came,
and
if
the
Chick-fil-A,
prior one, no, Q-Smart was gonna build that building regardless of who went in there.
well, they would only build it if they had someone to go in there.
That's not how I read it.
Because that's the way, because they have to build it to suit the tenant, so when they have a tenant and they're told what the tenant wants for the building, then they put it up. That is the plan, I don't want to be any misunderstanding, but they want to market these, they want to attract someone, they want to meet them on site, show them, find out what they want for the site, build to suit, or if they say we want to buy it and we'll build to suit, those options are available. That's the way this business goes, I'm told.
Go ahead.
So I wasn't here for the initial approval of this process, but I understand it fairly well. There was a provision made in order to expand storage initially, because retail, as you understand, was something that was important to preserve for the city. And that didn't take place for whatever reason,
The expansion,
the expansion. The expansion,
I can tell you why, but yeah.
I'm not sure that it's relevant, but the expansion didn't take place for whatever reason. So the ask now is to take those storage spaces and move them into a different section, which was not approved for storage. That's the issue that I still have. We want to make sure that we preserve as much retail space in this area. There is allocation for storage elsewhere in the city. That's my issue.
The reason the other two phases from 2020 weren't built is that there's a significant cost staging, bringing a contractor on and building it out. And what they've decided is that if they're going to do that, it would help to have the entire area that's going to be self-storage improved at once. The per square foot cost of doing it goes down as a result. It's not cost effective to build smaller areas onto the building. And there's still a dollar store in that retail location with a lease that's ticking away at this point, will eventually run out.
So now when you say entire storage area, are you also referring to the area in green?
Yes,
So there's going to be future expansion area in the green area to accommodate upper levels of storage and other things like that?
well, within the space there would be self-storage as was originally approved in 2020.
Because the last time I was in there, I saw a great deal of unused space up near the ceiling. And the reason why it wasn't developed was because of the cost.
In which building?
The section that is in green on the map,
In the former Picket Save building?
the existing storage area right now.
Yeah, I don't know.
So when you say that you're going to expand for the entire storage, I want to be clear. Are you looking to redevelop that to make it better?
The area in green will be committed to future self-storage as was originally approved. The area in red behind Slumberland would be self-storage, and that's it. The other areas in the front, the storefronts, would stay retail. Which is what I heard from this plan commission was a high priority, is to keep the retail opportunities there, market those to retail, put storefronts there if possible.
The areas that are allocated for storage are fine. It's the new areas.
Well, there's just one new area.
Right. Sorry, my mistake. Just the one area that's being presented now.
Yeah, I'm told it's incredibly difficult to market in this environment, a half-acre size space. Slumberland was a big store. It's very difficult to find a tenant for it. They feel fortunate to have the one they do have here. So the back half of that building would be out of sight. It would be self-storage. It would be a busy occupied space, but it would be the logical place to put this so as to retain as much retail as possible.
Well, the back half is only the back half until the back area is developed. It does face the park.
Yeah, the tenant there is not able to take it right now. They don't have a liquor license. I know you're aware of their other store up in McWanago.
Oh, that's fine. It could be any tenant. The fact that the park is there and a brand new, how many units is Toronto? It's going up. So there's going to be a need for future development for people to move potentially through that area. There's a huge opportunity for 140 some odd tenants to have a need to get someplace close to get food or whatever they wanted to do. So there's an opportunity there in this space that's untapped, that would be blocked by putting storage in.
If I could just clarify, I think what's being said is that, if we're, even though our map and our materials that we got show the two, as they did last month, the two in red, obviously we would take the one red that is more what I would call curb appeal, like, that you would see initially. I think that other piece is pretty well landlocked almost already, because you've got the blue liquor store in there now. But basically, if anyone was to like try to develop it or use it that was separate, you have to physically go in the alleyway, right? And it's just, I'm not saying it can't be done, but I personally wouldn't wanna, or think or feel that my business would be real successful because I'm not getting the storefront, the curb initial appeal. So I think for me, first of all, I appreciate again what Kevin clarified at the outset, because there wasn't any clarity for staff, there really wasn't any clarity for the developer, and we need more clarity after this meeting so that hopefully it can move on one way or another. For me, I think we talked about how different this plan was versus some of the other plans that we've seen. There could be some debate whether last month what was being proposed was any different than what had been proposed before, but I think clearly in my eyes, anyways, what's being proposed now, and there's two alternates, so you know, collectively, we have to decide, you know, what the consensus is on the alternates, but I would say this is different. I personally, as you pointed out, I think others on the council, even Bruce, when he was on the council, fighting to maintain the retail space, as you pointed out yourself, representing the developer. And that's been some of my issue and hurdle from 4 years ago even, and continues to be. It makes sense. I think it's a win for the city. And a win frankly for the developer to continue to maintain that curb front and window and the curb appeal and take that out. And I personally could live with the back end because I think it is landlocked, for me personally. What I know there's an alternate, I appreciate that this is different than we were being asked to consider last month. For me individually, I'd still like the two outlots. I know there's a lot to be determined that even if we were to approve it, or the council ultimately to approve it, there's a lot of hoops and hurdles yet. I think it really, by maintaining the retail space and opportunity is huge, but then also finding a way to work together and make sense of what two lots could potentially be and look like and uses would fix a very bad open asphalt lot that has been there from the beginning. I mean, clearly council, I wasn't on the council that approved this. I wasn't on the council that approved the shop code, but they learned from this lot and they did it better when they moved over across the street in Shopco and making sure that there was more islands and, you know, not able to just shoot across. And I think having the opportunity to, is a benefit. Obviously, we gotta talk about what those uses are and how it would benefit the city and, but clearly it would benefit a huge asphalt parking lot that looks horrible to me. And by allowing 2 lots, potentially, we can reconfigure that space, make it more beautiful, and desirable, and I think by offering 2 lots, even though we were talking about a 3-year lease at one point that could expire and potentially, be allowed for storage if they wanted to use that. By having 2 more lots out front and hopefully some good retail services or customer type things that currently aren't there, you're ensuring that all of this could potentially be more successful with retail space. That's just my opinion, one person, but that's where I'm at. I appreciate that you've gone back to the drawing board. I know it's a surprise to all of us, surprise to our staff, but I think at least we have some options.
I'm curious as to what your planner and your staff thinks about these changes, if there's an opinion.
Sure, well, my opinion is that the inline space is much more marketable for retail than the landlocked piece to the east. I personally think that the outlots would help support, this is a commercial area and retail area, and so I wouldn't want to see those. I'm comfortable with approving those now. I think that helps the project. So I'm in favor of one or both of the alternatives proposed by the applicant.
The original GDP does allow for lot 3. Why hasn't that been pursued?
It's been pursued, but there hasn't been an opportunity yet. A user has not come along yet.
So now you want us to approve lot 2 and lot 3, knowing that they don't have anyone for either one of them.
It's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge. Retail is a challenge. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It's a challenge, but they're willing to work at it. It's their business. They wanna try to make it work. The beauty of those outlots is that they're gonna be landscaped to modern standards. They're gonna be built to modern. They're gonna be the nicest buildings on that block when they're built.
Personally, I'm okay with the original GDP that we originally approved. And have them fulfill those 3 phases before we even thinking about something else. I mean, we know that the lease for Dollar Tree is gonna expire. And Smart is not going to renew the lease, obviously. And they're going to kick them out.
I've not heard that at all. No.
It doesn't make a difference, it's gonna happen, because they want the storage space, and they have the rights for storage in that area. At that time, they need to put a building up here for Dollar Tree. Now, Dollar Tree doesn't want that location, someone else needs to go there. And that's what they promised in the original GDP. So I'm okay with the original, without expanding storage into any of the other areas until they fill the first 2 phases of their promised deal.
I'm sorry, Kevin.
I feel like I'm at a disadvantage because I didn't bring my old map. But I recall, and if you could clarify, Jackie, I think the 2 retail lot facing red storage units that have been offered 307 and 317 and not be storage anymore. If I recall, we approved the Family Dollar transition to storage, and we approved transition of some of that space to storage. No? Okay, thank you.
Just the Dollar.
Whatever, thank you. So from the net place where we, from Bruce's, to Bruce's point, the original proposal called for everything that's green to be green. That's what we approved, okay? We didn't approve either of the red section, any of the red to be storage previously. and we approved the outlaw, we just outlawed one previously. And so basically, the ask here is, give me another outlaw and give me storage space behind the soon-to-be new liquor store, as an addition. So that would be the difference in the original proposal versus the new proposal. Is that correct? Am I interpreting it correct?
That's
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Kevin, for outlining it. Is there?
So I would want to, I mean, and I know that a lot of this is moving, parts. But something Bruce said, brought another question to my mind. Why would we be requesting the second outlot parcel at this point if we had, I mean, what's the advantage of it?
To my client,
Yeah,
it gives them another option to prospective tenants. They can market and they can market more.
they can either market, I mean, and I've been in businesses where we've cited a lot of outlaw buildings, right? And I can't think of one retail case where I would say, I'd rather be on Hobbs Drive than I'd be on Wright Street, unless I was a retail business looking to drive my costs down because I thought that parcel was less valuable. So, and I think some of us still have some concern in our heads from the last time outlot 2 was proposed, and the suggested tenants were the suggested lead tenant was a dry cleaner. And so, which I think our vision, not having any money in our pockets employed in this project, right? Is what we call retail. That isn't what we necessarily would be dreaming about, right?
Or another fireworks store.
But those plans are not, they don't have someone like that in their pocket.
Right, I know.
Well, they all moved across the street anyways for
Got a fireworks store.
lower rates. I know I'm maybe putting you on the spot. I mean, I think there's an advantage in my opinion, once again, and I completely appreciate where Bruce is at. Again, that goes back to when we both were aldermen, and I don't necessarily disagree with one thing that he had shared on that. I think there is a real, in my opinion, an advantage to having 2 potential lots as opposed to just the one. And again, I'm a part of the planning commission and the council, will do all that I can to make sure that it's not another ice cream store or a laundromat or a fireworks store. And that there's real new things that draw potentially people to Delavan. And so I guess maybe that was gonna kind of be my same question that Kevin had. I mean, there's gotta be a little bit more of an advantage. And is there anything that you could maybe speak to on the horizon that would offer, again, anything could certainly change but I mean, are there some things that you can maybe mention that maybe are a possibility that potentially could be a reality?
They have not mentioned anything like that to me, but in fairness, that wasn't one of my questions for them.
Right.
Like, do you have somebody ready to go for these spaces? No, I mean, the decision to take 307 and 317 off the table that was just a few hours ago. At my suggestion, that this is something that might be important to the city, is to withdraw that expansion area. So that decision was just made. I didn't ask them about prospective tenants. I don't think there are. But I think they're gonna market it because they certainly want to fill those units.
Right. And for me, I already said, but I'll reiterate, I mean, taking that off is huge. I mean, again, just trying to keep this, yeah, as much retail and curb appeal as possible.
Well, and let's just, and I've said it that way too, taking that off the table. The fact of the matter is, it's like, it never was something that had been granted previously, right? So it's,
I mean, when I say take it off the table, it's like.
Withdraw from the
Right,
application.
yeah. And I should have been more clear on that, but yeah. Any other comments? Questions? Oh, sorry.
I just a housekeeping thing before we move to motion. At our last meeting, we were, the sense of the commission was not easily interpreted concerning another matter. And so one of the, there was an interim discussion that the mayor and I participated in with staff that suggested that in the future on certain items, that instead of the packet only providing one motion form, a motion to approve, that there be two motion forms, and you will see in your motion packet that there's two motion forms for this item, so that the commission can clearly identify what its recommendation to the council is.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin, for that, and equally, important, thank you to staff for providing that. I think, certainly we talked about, in instances like this where there's conditional uses that there are going forward, two options. I think that will help this body and future bodies. So thank you, Kevin, for that. So, to the point of trying to better clarify for everyone involved, I would entertain some sort of motion at this time. If someone gets right.
Once again, there's two motions, because if the commission wants to express its opinion, it needs to either express a recommendation to approve or a recommendation to deny.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to recommend common council denial of proposed GDP amendment, as the access and interconnection between the proposed parcels is not adequately defined.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I still go back to the initial idea that this was designed to make an exception for limited storage, not as a pathway to take the cheapest route and chew up existing retail space later in the future. And the fact that the addition was not constructed, built, or anything else, and the pathway to move into additional storage for the retail space that was existing, it's not acceptable to me.
Any other discussion? Everyone clear on the motion? I'm gonna ask for a roll call on this one, so hopefully it's clear for the record.
Mr. DeWitt,
Yes.
Mr. Kahaka,
Yes.
Mrs. Bush,
Yes.
Mr. Beezer,
Yes.
Mr. Kodai,
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong.
Yes.
Did you want to ask me?
Oh, I forgot.
Well, I know why you forgot. I usually don't get a vote. as I stated earlier, I think we're missing an opportunity to clear up some stuff further, so I mean, clearly it's gonna be defeated, but I'll go on record as a no. With that, we'll move on to item number 5.4, which is consider a planned infill development. Step
Thank you for your
forward.
time.
Thanks, Dan. Item 5.4, consider a planned infill development step form. But precise implementation plan PRP at 207 through 325 South Wright Street, tax parcel XA4527-2, located in the business regional BR zoning district with a wellhead protection overlay to allow for an expanded indoor storage land use applicant Star Delavan LLC. Anyone care to make the motion?
I don't know, it should be pretty much the same. word. You can't take action on a step 4 that doesn't line up with, anything
just-
that's approved.
Okay. We'll just rule along. Item
We're
5.
not acting on item 5.4 because there's not a precedent to act on it.
5.5 is consider a single lot land redivision request by certified survey map CSM to combine the two tax parcels of 506 South Sixth Street.
You have a
Yes,
small certified survey map in your packet. This is two existing tax parcels owned by the same gentleman who wishes to put an accessory structure on the landlocked piece in the back. Unfortunately, you cannot build a accessory detached structure on a separate tax parcel. To combine the two requires a CSM because they're in two subdivision plans sections. It's a long way of saying he needs to combine the two to build a detached garage.
Because it's landlocked.
And it's in two different subdivisions. Does a letter go out to all the neighbors? Not for land divisions, no. Not for land, okay.
Yes, well. Oh, there's a motion. Second. And a second. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item 5.6 is consider transfer of city-owned property along Wright Street for right-of-way purposes.
One of the plan commission's duties is to recommend to the city council any sale or transfer of city property. Well number 4, one of the city's water wells is on Wright Street. With the upcoming DOT project, there's a small sliver of land, roughly 1 foot wide by the width of the frontage of the property, and then a small triangle on Hobbs Drive that would be needed because the sidewalk needs to shift back slightly with the widening of the road.
So, it wasn't clear, who are we transferring it to?
It transfers from the city of Delavan to the public, because public right of way is not owned by the city.
Okay, and what's the status on the Wright Street project, and why is this transfer required now?
Well, technically right now, that project is scheduled for construction next year. We do have a request into the DOT to push it back at least 1 year because of funding issues. But we still need to get all the right of way. We've got 27 properties that we need to acquire out of the project.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No. Entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to recommend the common council approve of the transfer of the required city-owned property needed for right-of-way with the upcoming Wisconsin DOT Wright Street reconstruction project contingent on the Wright Street reconstruction project taking place.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item 5.7 is consider alternate date for the November 2024 Planning Commission meeting. Got the suggested date of November 11th. Have any issues with that or care to make a motion? Yes, Kevin.
I move to set Monday, November 11th, 2024 as monthly planning commission meeting day.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed, same
You're
sign.
preserving my sanity.
That motion passes. Item 6 is zoning administrator's report. 6.1 is the monthly zoning activity report. Team?
Yeah, so there's just some items that were on there that, just to keep you guys updated. If you have any specific questions on the items on there, but, just kind of over the highlights of what was going on this month.
Any questions for T?
Yes, I can. Beverage Center came to us, a while back with their plans to expand. Is that dead or is that going forward or?
I haven't heard anything from them. I know we got plans and kind of looked like they were talking about moving some homes and doing a bunch of stuff. And
Yep.
I have not heard anything from them since we did give them their approval.
So how long does those plans stay on record? I mean, do they have to, would you ever have to go back before the planning commission if it, say it's 3 years from now?
So it's two years.
Oh, 2 years,
Oh,
okay.
Yep.
Thanks. Any other questions? Otherwise, thank you for the update. And if there's no additional business, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second, all in favor of adjournment, signify by stating aye. We're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.